And good morning, everybody. Welcome to GX Live. Today is Think Thursday, and we're going to talk about philosophy. Specifically, we're going to talk about Stoicism versus Christianity. So let's get into it. Stoicism is a Greek philosophy that really kind of centers itself on the virtues of the individual. That really it is your own self-reliance and your own virtues that allow you to remain essentially in pretty much an emotionless state. And Christianity obviously comes from the religion of the Judeo-Christian origin, which believes that Jesus of Nazareth was God made human, and he died at the hands of the Romans under Roman governor Pontius Pilate, and he was resurrected as proof of the fact that God actually became real here on earth. Now, we have these two different philosophies, these two different worldviews. And today, Stoicism is having a revival. It's just kind of on an acceleration upward. It's by no means on a fast track like Islam is, or even Christianity in other nations like China is. Religion is still just kind of spreading like wildfire. Stoicism is not spreading like that, although there are more magazines and more clubs happening, and the growth is happening. You have some big names right now that are selling books that believe in Stoic thinking. One is Ryan Holiday. He wrote a book called The Obstacle is the Way. You have Tim Ferriss. And these two more modern authors are the ones that are kind of advocating for Stoic thinking. And I kind of wanted to provide you some similarities between Stoicism and Christianity and some differences. And I found a really compelling description of this by a guy named Jules. He's the director for the Center for the History of the Emotions at Queen Mary College in London. And I'll give you the 5 similarities and the 8 differences that he kind of articulates. So similarities between Stoicism and Christianity. Number 1, serving God and serving the Logos. Serving God versus serving the Logos. So Stoicism believes that there is an ultimate Logos or a focal point for our lives. And versus Christianity, we believe it's more of a person than it is an ultimate force. And so a relationship between us and a God or a person is what Christians believe is going on versus just an ultimate meaning or force in the universe. It's not a person itself. That's kind of changed from the ancient Greeks between now. I would say a lot of the atheistic thinkers don't even think there's a force out there. They just believe what is here and what is now and what is measured is kind of what exists. Number 2 similarity is what and who is your master? So in Christianity, we believe that we're servants of Christ and God. And then in Stoicism, they believe that there is something higher that you should be serving, a higher cause, a higher calling, something that you should be serving. So there is a similarity there. There's an inner service, not an external spectacle. So Stoics believe that you shouldn't really be ostentatious with your beliefs. And Christians also kind of have some of this view that we should kind of be private in some of the areas of our lives, but we should also be public in some of these things. But a person who's basically, ranting from the rails is kind of getting their pleasure from that rather than their quiet time with God. And then there's this idea of what's called askesis, which is this rigorous self-discipline, particularly to a mental self-discipline, training the mind and training the passions of the body. This is something that Christianity and Stoics share. So that's number 4, is this rigorous discipline of training the mind, training the body. So those are 2 things that are absolutely similar with Stoicism and Christianity. And the last and 5th thing is serving the city of God before serving the city of man. So the higher calling and the higher Logos is served in Stoicism. That higher transcendent cause that you're a part of is there. And in Christianity, our idea is to serve the city of God, to serve God's kingdom. And really, we're really doing God's will here in both of these philosophies. So we're doing the Logos will in Stoicism. You're doing God's will in Christianity. But God doesn't do your will for you. In Stoicism, the Logos doesn't do your will for you. So the decisions you make, those are yours. Those are the decisions you're making. You're responsible for those. So those are similarities in both those worldviews. The differences, though, in Christianity, the Logos, the meaning of the world, became a human, became flesh. All right? So the idea behind this is that there is no real individual relationship to be had with the Logos in Stoicism. There is a certain amount, and Philip Olmsted, he just chimed in and he's talking about the self-pleasing in Stoicism. And I'll get to that in a second, because that's kind of what ends up happening ultimately in Stoicism. And so when we look at one of the differences, the Logos has become a real person and a relationship with the ultimate being or the ultimate meaning of the world, is not only more aligned with our nature, it allows us to have a reliance on something greater than ourselves, and fulfills two of these deficits in the Stoic mindset. Christianity is definitely more emotional and more dependent on God. So Stoics would basically, if you set a Stoic's house on fire, like the factory when that burned to the ground when I think it was Thomas Edison's factory that burned to the ground. I think he called his family out and said, "Hey, you got to take a look at this fire. You'll never see one like this again." There's this idea that there is no real addressing of the issue at hand, because it's a waste of time in a Stoic's mind. It's a waste of time to feel the emotion. It's a waste of time to cry about it. It's a waste of time to kind of just, to think about it. We just kind of have to say, this is what it is, and we move forward from it. Bad things happen, and what's really important is how we react to it, is what a Stoic might say. Christians are feelers, so they're going to have emotions, and they're going to cry out to God, and they're going to complain to God, and they're going to have all of these very human attributes come about it. But at the end of the day, there is a move towards progress through the suffering. Then you have Christians versus Stoics believe in an idea called grace. Now, if you don't know what that is, Stoics don't believe that the gods have really given you any kind of forgiveness at all. Zeus said, if you want something figured out, then you got to find it for yourself. So there's this self-reliance idea happening in Stoicism. You need to be self-reliant. You need to do it on your own. I'm not going to help you. I mean, Zeus, the great god of the Greeks, is saying, I'm not coming down there to help you. You help yourself. If anything you're looking good for, find it in yourself. But in Christianity, you're actually having a person as God come down, and then he's saying, I'm going to take on all of the punishment and all of the pain and all of the suffering that you're enduring in your place. And so grace is this gift given to humanity by God becoming human. And the idea behind grace is, if you accept that gift, then you have the ability to see your future eternity with Jesus. And so that's very different. That's radically different. I think a Stoic would be like, what in the heck are you talking about? But a Christian believes in grace. Christianity believes in Satan. So we believe in an evil spiritual dimension just as much as we believe in the good spiritual dimension. We believe that they're not equal, like dualism, like in Star Wars. We don't believe that there's a good force and a bad force, and they're kind of equal. Right? There's not equal. In Christianity, you believe there's an order to the world. So anything that's evil was a good thing, but has fallen. So all of humanity has fallen, including Satan, which we believe is an evil being, has fallen as well. And so the only thing good really is God. And so there is this innate sense that we have as human beings of this moral order in the world. The Yale Center for there's a baby center. They call it the Baby Lab at Yale. And they have been doing studies on 3-month-olds, I think all the way into early teenager, early adolescence. And what they've been finding out is at 3 months old, a baby can tell right from wrong, has a sense of justice, and also has a sense of basically bigotry or bias. So they're shown a puppet show. One animal is trying to open a box. This other animal helps them out. And then this other animal jumps on the box and shuts it. And then the baby's asked to choose which animal they would prefer. All the time, they choose the one that was helpful, right? If you move forward, hey, they show them 2 puppets again. One's eating a cereal that's like Cheerios. Another one's eating like Apple Jacks. And the kid is asked to prefer which one they like. Well, whatever puppet chooses the cereal they like, the baby will basically allow that puppet that shares their same cereal to do the bad behavior in the future. So that means we have like an inherent bias towards people that are like us. So there's an evil side of us that's happening there at 3 months old. So this is something that we are born with, and science is kind of playing this out. Number 5 difference, and there's 8 differences, and I'm almost done. Human nature is fallen, but in Greek philosophy, humanity can be perfected. So in Christianity, we believe that everything in the world is broken, and the only way it can be fixed is through the Creator, making everything whole again. It means that we as human beings can become better the closer and closer we get to God. The Greek philosophy is the more self-reliant you are, the more you rely on your virtue rather than your emotions, the more perfected your life will be. It doesn't really matter what bad happens to you. It just, as long as you have your virtues, that's it. Number 6, Christians are much more certain about the afterlife than the Greeks. So the Greeks did not have as clear a definition of what heaven looks like as Christians did. There is a sense of the afterlife through Hades and through being with the gods and stuff like this, but at the same time there is no concept like heaven in Christianity. And when you have the person of Jesus who is resurrected, Christians have this picture of what the world will look like when everything comes to a close, when the world becomes new again, that we're not going up to heaven, heaven's coming down, and Jesus is making everything new. Again, a Stoic would be like, what superstitious nonsense are you talking about? But a Christian would say, well, the evidence is pointing me towards a new heaven and new earth, and that's what I'm seeing in the person of Jesus. Number 7, Christians are bigger on community, ritual, dance, music, symbolism, and stories. I think a lot of people that go to Stoic meetups are probably not walking away completely transformed. I'm sure their minds are engaged, and I'm sure they're finding new ways to live their lives and new ways to plug in data points to see if, hey, what's the pain threshold of this situation in my life? Tim Ferriss talks about that a lot. But at the end of the day, Christians are huge on community. They're huge on ritual. They believe in the symbols of their faith. They believe in creative arts and dance and music. So there are some areas here where Stoics are just completely different from Christians. And the last and final one, in Christianity, love is the supreme ethic, whereas in Stoicism, reason and rationality are the supreme ethic. The problem with this is, and this is where Stoicism, I think, is just completely backwards, is that it says that our reason, our rationality is our true nature. Well, if that were true, then how come we don't see more virtuous people across the world? Basically, why don't we see more sages that are Stoics across the world? Why isn't Stoicism on fire across the world like religion is? Now, Islam, this is a whole other topic, but Islam is the fastest growing religion. I won't get into that topic now. It's not reasons that are good, but there are, for Christians, Christianity is on fire across many parts of the world, mainly China. There's more people that worship Jesus Christ in China, in a communist nation, than in the United States. So there's a huge underground celebration of Jesus in China. So you have to think about, are there huge movements of Stoicism going on right now? It's on the rise. People are advocating it more. But I don't think people are walking away saying that, oh, my natural instinct is to use my reason and my rationality. At the end of the day, Christianity says you're a relational being that needs to be in community not only with other people, but with God. And if the God of the universe, which is a triune or a Trinitarian God, you've probably heard of the Trinity, that right there is a description of a relational being that created a relational being here on earth. So cause and effect. He's the cause, we're the effect. If we are relational, shouldn't the cause also be relational? That makes sense to me in a rational way of thinking, but how it plays out on the ground is I need to be close to human beings. I need to be close to God. So you may or may not agree with what I'm talking about here with Stoicism versus Christianity. I think it's something that's on the rise because Stoicism is really a popular way to say, you know what, just don't feel anything anymore. As long as you don't feel anything and you rely on your own self, virtue and your own grit, then you can just kind of weather the storms. Now that might be true in the short term, but I think in the long term, it doesn't hold water. So I think out of this whole thing, I think Stoicism and Christianity hold incredible similarities. But I think Christianity is a step up or an evolution up from Stoicism. So there are some really cool points. And what I'm going to do is, because Philip Olmsted is asking for some bullet points of these things, I'm going to actually list these out in a comment on this video, so that way you guys have some of these bullet points. So thanks again for watching. Have an amazing day, and let me know your thoughts. Stoicism or Christianity? What would you choose? Thanks. Bye.